You're listening to Mr. Credit on San Diego 1700 with local credit expert Derek Evans. Now, live in studio, Mr. Credit.
Welcome back to Mr. Credit. We are live and local here in San Diego, bringing you the most important hour in radio, telling you everything they don't want you to know. Remember, you can email me. Go to mrcreditradio.com or do a Facebook search for Mr. Credit, and you will find me there. I actually got Facebook yesterday with a very interesting scenario that I'm going to bring up later. But first, I've got to start with this article in the LA Times. We have to talk about this. It's just everywhere, and people are reading these stories, and they don't know what to make of it. But this one is by David Lazarus, and it says, "Be wary of firms that, quote-unquote, fix credit." First off, anytime you're spending money, you need to be wary. I mean, if you're spending your money on something, you need to do your due diligence. If you're signing a contract, you have to know what it says. If you're just listening to what someone's telling you verbally and you're signing a contract based on that, there could be two totally different things there. The contract is what matters. That's the first point to make. You've got to be wary of everyone. I think this is a very weak article. I mean, I really don't approve it, not just because he's bashing the industry that I'm in and helping people educate them and improve their credit scores, but the fact that it's such a sweeping generalization based on one instance. He goes on to talk about how a couple who he interviewed got into deep debt. One of them lost their job, and they went to this firm who said that they would help them lower their bills. Now, this firm supposedly is a firm that actually improves people's credit and doesn't actually lower folks' bills, so there was some miscommunication there. But upon further review, Lazarus goes to say the dispute, what becomes very clear after reviewing the contract, is that they don't have much to stand on. So he's bringing you a story here about something, saying to be wary, but ultimately is saying that the contract makes no promise for reducing debt and says that the company offers no guarantees regarding the amount of points credit scores will be raised, and that the company is not responsible if the client's expectations are not reached. So what really happened here, David, what the real story is that make sure you read what you sign. That's what your article should be titled. Read what you sign, or be wary of the documents that you sign without reading them. Because while this company, who knows what was said, and I'm not speaking on their behalf, I'm just saying that I think this is weak, and it's based on fear. It's trying to put fear in you, put fear that people out there who are trying to do business don't have your best interests in mind. And in a lot of cases they don't, especially when they're big businesses, but most small business owners really have good intentions. They really do want to help people. And that's the reason they started their business. They wanted to make a living doing something that they enjoyed, and they're not going to get extremely rich over it, but they're going to be able to do something that they help people. And that's exactly what I do. And I do guarantee that your score will go up a certain number of points, but most companies don't. And the reason I know that is because I know exactly what you need to do, no matter what your situation is. You don't have to try to figure out on your own what you need to do about your credit. If you have concerns about it, you just need to give Mr. Credit a call. 858-571-0271. Now, he also said that this company paid money up front for this counseling service, so he calls it a credit counseling service later in the article. And then he actually got a quote from the supervising deputy state attorney general that says it's a huge problem in California right now because of the economic circumstances. This is Robin Smith, supervising deputy state attorney general. Debt settlement companies are a real minefield. Well, who are we talking about here, Lazarus? Are we talking about firms that help people fix credit? Are we talking about credit counseling? Or are we talking about debt settlement? Because they're all three different things. So how can you write such a weak article? I just can't believe that someone who writes for the LA Times would write something that is so meaningless. It's empty. If you want to make something powerful here, man, let me give you a suggestion. Write an article about how people need to be very wary about any contract that they're signing, period. You have to read it. If you don't want to read a contract that you are about to sign, then you've got to pay someone to read it for you. It's just that simple. An attorney. You need a zealous attorney to do that. I would recommend Dan Kerr for that. He will read any contract that you might have, especially if it's real estate related, has to do with employment, things of that nature. Just call Dan Kerr, 619-823-8230, or go to kerrlaw.com, K-E-H-R law.com. He'll read your contract for you, but you've got to do it. You can't just run around signing contracts. That's how people get stuck in all these different things. You know, some contracts allow you to cancel them, but some of them are just all-inclusive. And when that's the case, you've got to know what you're reading. You've got to know what you're signing up for. As apparently, although Lazarus goes on to rip this person and this company, he actually says that the clients have no fight. They don't have any ground to stand on, quote unquote. So why are we writing this article then, Lazarus? I don't understand. What is your point? Are you just trying to scare people? We don't need fear right now. There's plenty of that going around. What we need is hope. We need to hear the story about the person who got his credit score increased, like I said yesterday when I brought Craig Sewing with Benchmark Mortgage on. And we talked about his buyer who came in with the 565 credit score. Less than 35 days, he's got a 643. He's buying a home. They're closing next week. That's what we need to hear about. We need to hear about people who have actually had good experiences, people who have had success in making their lives better. We don't need another story about, an unfortunate situation where you have, probably the exception and not the rule of a company. There was a miscommunication. I mean, that happens all the time. You can't just say be wary of firms that fix credit. You need to be wary of anyone you're spending your money with. It just really burns me because he doesn't even know what he's talking about. It'd be different if the guy were a credit expert, if he were a banker, if he were involved in the industry at all, but he's just a journalist and even refers in the article 3 different times to 3 different types of businesses. He says companies that fix credit, he says credit counseling service, and then says debt settlement companies. Those are totally different. Now, you know that I don't recommend debt settlement for anyone because I can't think of a single instance in which it's what's going to be best for you. Now, credit counseling is a different thing. I don't have anyone to recommend there either because I don't have anyone who's got a reputation that I can trust to refer you to. But I think that we need to get away from the idea of bringing the fear about, and we need to talk about the positive things. We've got to get away from this negative Nancy situation that the media is just entrenched in. And we've got to look forward and we've got to be positive. And you've got to do that with your credit. You have to look forward. We can't look backwards. Bad things happen to all of us. We've all had something bad happen on our credit, myself included. We've all made mistakes in the past. But if you sit there and stare at it, or you make a point to bring that up, where's that going to get you? It's not going to get you anywhere. You have to look forward. You have to be proactive. I want you to be thinking, not what is my credit score today? When you look at your credit report or when you think about your credit, you need to think, what is my credit score going to be 6 months from now? What is my credit score going to be 12 months from now? And you always have to be thinking along those lines because that's what really matters. What your credit score is right now, you can't change what it is right now. When you pull your credit report, you're looking at the past. The only way to look into the future is to become educated about what's on your credit, to understand what you need to do in order to get the score that you deserve, to get a score that's above average. The average score in the country is 692. Where is your score? Where is it right now? And if you pulled a report 6 months ago, that's not good enough. It means we still don't know. We've got to get that figured out. It's just too important. Now, I don't want to stay on negative stories, but I want to talk about these things that are real, these real problems that are happening, because just this week I had actually a good friend of mine who is a client as well, and he short sold his home. It's already been done. It happened a few months ago, and he did everything right. He did everything right. He did not miss a single payment, and he short sold the home without missing a payment. Didn't go late at all. Has proof of that. However, we pulled his credit, and guess what the bank did? Guess what the bank did? I don't want to say their name, but it begins with a W. Guess what the bank did? They reported him late. So he goes through the short sale process, makes his payment the whole time. Most people don't do that. Costs him thousands and thousands of dollars to do that throughout the process of the short sale. And they report him late anyway, and his score goes down over 100 points on all 3 bureaus. He loses over 100 points because they reported that 30-day late. Remember, a 30-day late on a mortgage, on a credit card, on an auto loan, it's going to cost you at least 50 and up to 100 points. In this case, it cost him 100 points. Scores went from 750s to 650s. So he went from being A+ credit to being C- credit because of an error on the bank's behalf. Now, if you ask me, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if the bank did that on purpose.